You don't have a family of your own anyway, so it works out. That's what my mother said. At Thanksgiving dinner, in front of my 2 siblings, their spouses, and 5 children, while announcing that I'd be watching all 5 kids over Christmas. She hadn't asked me. She never does. What she didn't know was that I already had a plane ticket in my bag, and I wasn't going to cancel it. By Christmas morning, her perfect family holiday fell apart in ways she never imagined, and the group chat she used to shame me, it became the very thing that silenced her. Before I go on, if this story speaks to you, hit like and subscribe, and drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is there. I'd love to know. I'm Jessica. I'm 27. And this is what happened when I stopped being my family's free babysitter. Now let me take you back to Thanksgiving weekend. The night everything changed. My mother's house sits on a 1/4-acre lot at the end of Sycamore Lane in Millbrook, Virginia. White siding, black shutters, a porch swing that hasn't swung right since 2014. Every holiday, that house smells the same. Roasted turkey, cinnamon sticks simmering on the stove, and the faint burn of something Linda Mercer forgot in the oven because she was too busy directing traffic. That Thanksgiving, all 4 of us were there. Karen, my oldest sister, 35, 3 kids. Derek, my brother, 33, twin 4-year-olds. Their spouses. 5 children under 8, running figure 8s around the dining table. And me, 27, single, sitting in the chair closest to the kitchen because that's where I always end up. Halfway between the family and the cleanup. We were midway through dinner when Mom stood up and clinked her wine glass like she was giving a toast. She smiled at everyone. So, I've been thinking about Christmas. Karen and Brad, you 2 deserve that resort trip you've been talking about. Derek, I know Tina's parents want to see the twins. So here's the plan. She turned to me. Jessica will stay here with the kids, same as every year. I opened my mouth, but Karen was faster. Oh good, she said, sliding her phone across the table toward me. I already printed the allergy list for you. I looked at the printed sheet. Lily's peanut allergy, Ethan's bedtime routine, Noah's eardrops. Laminated, color-coded, like a manual for a new employee. I looked around the table. Derek was cutting his turkey. Brad was pouring more wine. Tina was studying her plate. Nobody flinched. Nobody said, "Wait, did anyone ask Jessica?" So I said it myself. Actually, I have plans this Christmas. Every knife and fork at that table went still. And then my mother said the thing I will never unhear. Plans? What plans? You don't have a family of your own anyway, so it works out. I didn't say anything after that. Not at the table. I just finished my mashed potatoes while the conversation moved on like nothing had happened, because to them, nothing had. The kids went to bed around 8. Karen and Brad took the guest room. Derek and Tina left for their hotel. I grabbed my coat and headed for the front door. Mom caught me in the kitchen. She was loading the dishwasher, which she always does when she wants to have a conversation she can pretend isn't a confrontation. Hands busy, eyes down, voice casual. Jessica, I don't understand what the fuss is about. I told her the truth. I said I'd booked a flight. I'd been planning this for months. I'd already gotten the time off from the clinic. She turned around and looked at me like I'd told her I was joining a cult. A plane ticket. For what? Some beach? She shook her head. You're being dramatic, Jessica. It's just a few days with the kids. It's not like I'm asking you to move a mountain. You didn't ask me at all, Mom. I shouldn't have to ask. That's what family does. From the living room, Karen's voice floated in. Honestly, Jess, I would do the same for you if you had kids. It's what sisters do. I looked back at the kitchen. Derek's chair was empty. He'd already left without a word. I said goodnight. I walked out. The screen door clapped shut behind me and the November air hit my face like cold water. I sat in my car for a full minute before turning the key. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from sadness. From the slow, sickening recognition that not a single person in that house had asked me what I wanted. Not once. Not in years. I drove home. I opened my phone. The plane ticket was still there in the app. Outer Banks, December 23rd. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cancel it. My apartment is a studio above a hardware store on Main Street. 480 square feet. One window that faces the parking lot. A radiator that clangs at 2 a.m. like someone knocking. But it's mine. On the fridge, I had a printout of my approved time-off request from the clinic. December 22nd through the 28th. Signed by Dr. Nguyen 2 months ago. Next to it, a small notebook with a handwritten ledger I'd been keeping since June. 6 months of numbers. Every extra night shift. Every overtime hour. Every home-cooked meal instead of takeout. Every morning I made coffee in my own kitchen instead of stopping at the drive-thru. Every small sacrifice, tallied in blue ink. The total at the bottom of the last page, $2,340. That was my Outer Banks fund. My first real vacation since a high school field trip to Williamsburg when I was 16. 11 years ago. Megan and I had split an Airbnb, a little cottage 2 blocks from the beach. I'd looked at the photos so many times the listing was burned into my memory. White curtains. A porch with 2 rocking chairs. The sound of waves close enough to hear through the screen door. I called Megan. She picked up on the second ring. I told her everything. The announcement, the allergy list, the laminated schedule, the line about not having a family of my own. Megan was quiet for a few seconds. Then she asked me something that cracked the whole thing open. Jess, when was the last time your mom asked you what you wanted for Christmas? Not what you could do for everyone. What you wanted. I opened my mouth to answer. Nothing came out. I scrolled through years of memory and came up empty. That's your answer, Megan said. The apartment was quiet. The radiator clanged. And on my phone screen, the booking still glowed. Confirmed. Outer Banks, December 23rd. 2 passengers. To understand why I almost canceled that ticket, you need to understand how this started. Not with a single moment, but with a pattern. One that took root so quietly I mistook it for normal. 4 Christmases ago. I was 23, fresh out of nursing school, working my first real job at Millbrook Family Health. Karen had just had Lily, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, colic that could wake the neighbors. She and Brad were running on fumes. Mom pulled me aside on Christmas Eve. She had that soft voice she uses when she's already decided something but wants you to think it's your idea. Honey, Karen needs a break. You're so good with kids. Can you just watch Lily for a few hours on Christmas Day so we can all enjoy dinner? A few hours? That's what she said. I still have the text message in my phone from that morning. Just a few hours, honey. You're the best. A few hours turned into the whole day. Lily screamed through lunch, screamed through dinner. I walked her up and down the hallway while everyone else sat around the table pulling crackers and passing the gravy. At 10 p.m., I ate leftover turkey alone in the kitchen. Cold plate, quiet house. Everyone had gone to bed or gone home. I washed my plate. I wiped down the counter. I drove home. The next morning, Karen called. Did Lily sleep through the night after you left? She didn't ask if I'd slept. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. She didn't say thank you, and I didn't think anything of it. Not then. I told myself Karen was exhausted, that Mom needed help, that this was what good daughters do. I believed it. That was year 1. The mold had been poured, and I didn't even notice. Year 2, the roster doubled. Karen had Ethan by then, a newborn who only slept in 20-minute bursts. Derek and Tina had the twins, Mason and Harper, barely 4 months old. Christmas at Mom's house now meant 4 children under 3, and 1 babysitter. Mrs. Karen and Brad went to a spa day on the 24th. Just a few hours, Karen said. They came back at 9 p.m. Derek and Tina said they needed to run out for last-minute shopping. They vanished until dinner. Around 3 in the afternoon, I ran out of diapers. I texted Karen. She Venmo'd me $50 with a single emoji. A hugging face. No, thank you. No, I owe you one. Just $50 and a digital hug for a full day of managing 4 infants alone in a house that smelled like spit up and gingerbread. Year 3 was worse. Karen was pregnant with Noah. She was on bed rest by Thanksgiving, so the Christmas setup started earlier. Mom called me the first week of December. "We need you at the house by the 23rd. Karen can't do anything this year." I tried, I said. "What if Karen and Derek each take a day? I'll take one day. They take the next. We rotate." Mom's answer was immediate. "They have spouses to spend time with, Jessica. You'll understand when you have someone." That sentence landed like a slap wrapped in tissue paper. Soft delivery. Hard truth underneath. I was chosen because I was alone, not because I volunteered. That year, I canceled Christmas Eve plans with friends. I texted Megan at 11 p.m. from Mom's couch, surrounded by sleeping toddlers. "Rain check again, family stuff." Megan's reply came fast. "Jess, this is the 3rd year." 3 words. And I almost heard it. Almost. Year 4 broke something in me. Not loudly, not all at once. More like a hairline fracture you don't feel until the weight hits just right. 5 kids now. Lily was 6. Ethan was 4. The twins were 3. Baby Noah had just turned 1 and was cutting molars, which meant he screamed like the world was ending every 90 minutes. Karen and Brad flew to a resort in Shenandoah Valley. 3 days. Derek and Tina drove to Tina's parents. 2.5 days. Mom stayed at the house but spent most of her time cooking, hosting neighbors, and making the dining room look like a magazine spread. I was alone with 5 children for 3 days straight, sleeping in the kids' room on an air mattress that deflated by 2 a.m. On day 2, Noah spiked a fever, 102 degrees. I called Karen. No answer. She was at the spa. I called Mom, who was downstairs icing a cake. "Just give him Tylenol. You're a nurse, Jessica." I loaded 5 children into my car and drove to urgent care. Noah in his car seat screaming. The twins buckled in behind me, kicking the back of my seat. Lily holding Ethan's hand, asking me if Noah was going to be okay. The copay was $180. I paid with my debit card. Nobody offered to pay me back. When Karen got home on the 26th, tan and rested, she asked, "Is Noah okay?" I said yes. She reached into her bag and pulled out a candle. "We brought you this from the gift shop." A $12 candle. For 3 days of solo childcare, a fever scare, and a $180 urgent care bill. I drove home that night and sat in my car in the apartment parking lot for 20 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just felt something close quietly inside me. Like a door shutting, not slamming, just clicking shut the way a latch does when you finally let it go. That was the Christmas that changed something in me. Not anger, something quieter. The thing about being the reliable one is that people stop seeing you. They see what you do. They see the hands that fold the laundry and the car that shows up on time and the voice that says okay on the phone. But they stop seeing the person behind all of it. It wasn't just Christmas. Every time Mom needed a ride to the eye doctor, she called me, not Karen, who lived 15 minutes closer. Not Derek, who worked from home on Fridays. Me, because I was the flexible one. Every holiday, I was the one who drove over the day before to clean the house, set the table, arrange the guest towels. Karen showed up with a store-bought pie and a smile. Derek showed up with nothing and nobody questioned it. Mom introduced me to neighbors the same way every time. "This is my youngest. She's always so helpful." Not, "She's a registered nurse." Not, "She just got promoted." Just helpful. Like a household appliance with a name. And when I graduated from my RN program, cap, gown, the whole thing, not one of them came. Mom had a migraine. Karen said Lily had a playdate. Derek said he forgot the date. Megan was the only person there. She brought flowers and took a photo of me holding my diploma in the parking lot. I still have it. It's the only graduation picture I own. That night, I opened the family group chat. Mercer family. And scrolled. 3 years of messages. Nearly every single one was either Mom assigning me a task or Karen forwarding a to-do list. Doctor appointment reminders, grocery runs, pickup times, babysitting instructions. Not one message in 3 years that said, "How are you, Jessica?" Not one. I used to tell myself they were just busy, but busy people still show up for the things that matter to them. I just wasn't one of those things. So here I was, late November, 4 Christmases deep in a pattern I'd finally named, and on my kitchen counter sat a notebook full of numbers that represented the first thing I'd ever saved for that was just for me. $2,340, 6 months of overtime, 6 months of packing lunches, 6 months of saying no, I'll make coffee at home every single morning. I could recite the math in my sleep. 4 extra night shifts a month at time and a half, minus what I put toward rent, minus groceries, and whatever was left went into the envelope I kept in my sock drawer. Megan and I had planned this trip down to the hour, an Airbnb 2 blocks from the beach, a seafood shack she'd read about online, a sunrise walk on the first morning, rocking chairs on the porch. I hadn't seen the ocean since I was 15. Then my phone buzzed. Group chat. Mom. Jessica, I'm forwarding Karen's list. The kids' schedule is the same as last year. Don't forget Noah's eardrops. Same as last year. Like it was already done. Like I had already said yes. Like the notebook and the overtime and the 6 months of going without didn't exist. Because to her, they didn't. I stared at that message for a long time. 6 months of extra shifts for a trip she didn't even bother to ask about before canceling it in her head. I wonder, if you were sitting where I was, holding that phone, what would you have felt? Have you ever saved for something that was finally, truly yours, and then watched someone treat it like it was nothing? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. I put the phone face down on the table. The screen went dark. For the first time in 4 years, I didn't type okay. 2 days later, Megan and I sat in a booth at Hal's Diner off Route 15 after a 12-hour shift. The kind of tired where the fluorescent lights feel personal. I had a sweet tea. She had a basket of fries she wasn't touching. "So, what are you going to do?" she said. I turned my straw in circles. "I haven't replied to the group chat." "I know. That's not what I asked." I looked at her. "If I go to the beach, my mom will lose it." "Your mom is going to lose it no matter what you do that isn't exactly what she planned." Megan dipped a fry and pointed it at me. "Do you actually want to cancel the trip?" "No." "Then don't. It's not that simple." "It is that simple. You just don't want it to be, because simple means dealing with the fallout." She set the fry down. "Jess, your mom's been mad every time you've wanted anything for yourself. You went to nursing school and she said it was a phase. You moved into your own apartment and she called it a waste of money. Her being upset is not the measuring stick for whether you're doing the right thing." I didn't answer. She was right, and I hated it. "What if they never forgive me?" I said. Megan leaned back in the booth. "What if you never forgive yourself for missing another Christmas of your own?" The diner hummed around us, plates clattering, the cook yelling an order number, a couple laughing by the register. I picked up my tea and took a long sip. "I'm going," I said. "I'm not canceling." Megan smiled. Just barely. Like she'd been waiting a long time to hear me say it. The only question now was whether I'd tell my family before I left, or let them find out on their own. The call came on a Wednesday evening. I was rinsing dishes in my apartment when my phone lit up with a name I didn't expect. Aunt Pauline? Pauline Hayes, my mother's younger sister, retired teacher. Lived alone in Keswick, 40 minutes south. She showed up to family events maybe twice a year, smiled politely, and left early. Most of the family thought she was just private. I'd always sensed it was something more. "Jessica, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "No, Aunt Pauline. What's going on?" She paused. "I saw the group chat. Your mother posted that schedule and tagged you like you're the hired help. I just wanted to check. Are you okay?" I almost dropped the plate I was holding. I'd forgotten Pauline was in the group chat. She never posted, never reacted. I assumed she'd muted it years ago. She hadn't. "I'm okay," I said. "I'm just figuring things out." "I know what that means." Her voice softened. When I was your age, Linda made me organize every family reunion. Invitations, food, cleanup, all of it. I did it for 8 years. Not once did anyone offer to help. And when I finally stopped, your mother told the entire family I was the selfish one. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Sound familiar? My throat tightened. What did you do? I stopped showing up until they treated me like a guest, not the staff. Took about 2 years. But they came around. I was quiet. She let me be. Whatever you decide, sweetheart, I just want you to know, choosing yourself is not the same as abandoning your family. I whispered a thank you that probably didn't sound like enough. Then, just before she hung up, Pauline added something that changed everything. And Jess, I've been reading that group chat for 3 years. I've seen every message your mother sent about you. You should know that. The line went quiet. My kitchen felt very still. After Pauline hung up, I sat on my couch with the phone in my lap and opened the group chat. I'd read these messages before. Hundreds of them, over 3 years. But I'd always read them the way you read road signs on your daily commute. Background noise, routine, expected. This time, I scrolled with different eyes. Last Christmas, December 24th, 3:14 p.m. I was at urgent care with Noah. 5 kids in tow. And there was my mother, texting Karen in the same group I was in, as if I wouldn't see it. She's fine. She likes feeling needed. It gives her something to do. Karen's reply, 2 minutes later. Loyal, true. Better than her sitting alone in that little apartment. I kept scrolling. 2 years ago, the week after I'd suggested rotating babysitting duty. Mom to Karen. I'll handle Jessica. She'll come around. She always does. And then the most recent one, sent the night after Thanksgiving, less than 3 weeks ago. I'd gone home. I'd sat in my car with shaking hands. And while I was driving through the dark, my mother had typed this to Karen. Jessica doesn't have a real life anyway. She should be grateful we include her at all. I read it once. I read it twice. I read it a third time. Slowly. The way you reread a sentence that doesn't make sense until it suddenly makes too much sense. She should be grateful we include her at all. I set the phone down. I pressed my palms flat on my knees and breathed. I didn't screenshot anything. I didn't need to. Those messages were sitting in a group chat that every member of the family, including Aunt Pauline, could scroll through any time they wanted. I picked the phone back up and called Megan. 1 sentence. We're going, and I'm not telling anyone. The next 2 weeks were the strangest of my life. I went to work. I came home. I cooked dinner. I replied to texts from friends. And the whole time, I carried a secret that sat in my chest like a warm stone. The group chat kept pinging. Mom sent updates almost daily. Noah's nap schedule, Ethan's new food sensitivity, the brand of wipes Lily preferred. Every message was addressed to me, but none of them were really for me. They were instructions. Dispatches from a general to a soldier who hadn't been asked if she wanted to enlist. I read them all. I didn't reply to any of them. I just tapped seen and moved on. At home, I packed my bag slowly. 1 carry-on, sundresses, a swimsuit, sandals, a paperback I'd been meaning to read since the summer. I put my out-of-office on at the clinic. I confirmed the Airbnb. I checked the weather in Outer Banks. Mid-50s, sunny, light wind off the water. Not beach weather for most people. Perfect weather for me. 1 week before Christmas, Mom called. So you'll be at the house by noon on the 23rd, right? Karen's flight is at 3. She needs to leave by 1. I held the phone against my ear and looked at my suitcase sitting by the door. I'll let you know, Mom. Silence. What do you mean, let you know? It's Christmas, Jessica. I'll let you know. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the gears turning. The recalculation, the irritation, the barely controlled need to say something sharp. But she didn't push it. Not yet. She thought she had time. She thought I'd come around. I always had before. I hung up, and the apartment went quiet. Just the radiator and the sound of my own breathing, Following through on my own plans felt like the most radical thing I'd ever done. December 21st, our last shift before the break. Megan and I ate lunch in the staff room at the clinic. Plastic chairs, a microwave that smelled like last week's soup, and a window that looked out at the parking lot where my car sat packed and ready. "Are you nervous?" Megan asked, peeling the lid off a yogurt. "A little," I said. "Not about the trip. About my phone on the 23rd. Turn it off." "I can't. What if something's actually wrong with one of the kids?" Megan thought about it. "Then leave it on, but don't pick up unless it's a real emergency. You'll know the difference between panic and guilt trips. You've had enough practice." My phone buzzed on the table between us. Group chat. Mom had sent a photo. The house, fully decorated. Garland on the staircase. A wreath on the front door. A tree in the living room with mismatched ornaments the grandkids had made. Below the photo, her message. "All ready for the family. Jessica, the kids' room is set up. I put the air mattress in there for you too." Megan leaned over my shoulder and read it. She looked at me. "Air mattress. In the kids' room." "Yeah. She set up a bed for you in the room with 5 children." "Yeah. Not the guest room, not the couch. The kids' room, with the crying toddler and the twins who kick in their sleep." I said nothing. Megan sat back. "You know what the Airbnb in Outer Banks has?" "What?" "King beds." She pointed her spoon at me. 2 of them." I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd had in weeks, the kind that starts in your stomach and pushes everything else out of the way, even if just for a second. 2 days, 48 hours, and I'd be somewhere no one had assigned me to be. December 22nd, 9 p.m., the night before everything. My apartment was dark except for the lamp on the nightstand and the blue glow of my phone. The suitcase sat by the front door like a promise. Alarm set for 5:30. Flight at 8. I called Aunt Pauline. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." I heard her exhale, slow and steady, the way someone breathes when they've been holding something in for a while. "Good. I'll be watching the group chat. And if it gets ugly, you call me." "Aunt Pauline?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Do you think I'm wrong?" She didn't hesitate. "Wrong for what? For having a life?" A pause. "Honey, the only wrong thing would be spending another Christmas being someone's free help while pretending it's love." I pressed my forehead against the window. The street outside was empty. A thin frost was forming on the windshields in the parking lot. "Get some sleep," Pauline said, "and take pictures of that beach for me." We hung up. At 9:47, my phone rang again. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was 22 seconds long. I played it once. "Jessica, Karen's dropping the kids' bags off at my place tomorrow morning. Be here by noon. Don't be late." "No, please." No question mark. Just an order. Delivered in the same tone she used to tell me to set the table when I was 12. I listened to it one more time. Then I deleted it. I lay down, pulled the blanket up, set my alarm, closed my eyes. The wind scraped against the window. The radiator clanged once, then settled. Tomorrow morning I would be at the airport, and my family would be waiting at the door. 5:30 a.m. The alarm went off in the dark. I didn't hit snooze. I was already awake. I'd been lying there since 5, staring at the ceiling, listening to my own heartbeat, waiting for the guilt to come crawling in. It didn't. I showered, dressed. Jeans, a light sweater, my good boots. I looked at myself in the mirror over the bathroom sink and saw someone I almost didn't recognize. Not because I looked different, but because I looked ready. Megan pulled up at 6:15, headlights in the dark. I locked my apartment, wheeled my suitcase down the stairs, and loaded it into the trunk of her car. The morning air was sharp enough to sting. "Ready?" she said. "Ready." We drove to the airport in the kind of quiet that doesn't need filling. The highway was mostly empty. A few trucks, a couple of early commuters. Christmas lights blinked from the houses along Route 29. At the airport, everything moved in a blur. Check-in, Security. Gate B7. 2 seats by the window. At 8 a.m., my phone lit up. Group chat. Mom. Good morning. Karen's dropping the kids at 10. See you at noon. An exclamation point. A smiley face. She had no idea. I read the message. Megan glanced at my screen but didn't say anything. She opened her book. I put the phone in my bag. At 8:20, they called our boarding group. I handed over my pass, walked down the jetway, and found my seat. Window side. The engines hummed. The cabin lights dimmed. And then we were moving. Rolling. Tilting. Lifting. I looked out the window as the ground got smaller. Somewhere down there, my mother was setting out juice boxes for 5 kids and saving me a spot on an air mattress. Above the clouds, it was nothing but sun. We landed just after 10. Outer Banks smelled like salt and pine, nothing like Virginia in December. The air was cool, but there was warmth underneath it, the kind that comes off the water when the sun's been on it all morning. Megan picked up the rental car. I turned my phone back on. 6 missed calls from Mom. 3 from Karen. 1 text from Derek. Hey, where are you? Mom's calling me. The group chat had gone from quiet to detonation. 11:58 a.m. Mom. Jessica, where are you? Karen's already gone. The kids are here. Call me. 12:03. Mom again. This is not funny. I'm calling you. 12:07. Mom. All caps. Jessica, answer your phone. I stared at the screen. Megan was loading our bags into the trunk and pretending not to watch me. At 12:12, Mom called again. I picked up. Jessica, where are you? Karen left an hour ago. The kids are... I'm not coming, Mom. 3 seconds of silence. I counted. I told you I had plans, I said. Merry Christmas. I hung up. My hands were steady. My voice had been steady. And the quiet afterward, standing in a parking lot in Outer Banks with the sound of seagulls overhead and sand blowing across the pavement, felt like the first honest silence I'd had in years. 12:20. The group chat erupted. Mom. She's not coming. She left. She left us with 5 children. Karen, from wherever her flight had taken her. What? This can't be happening. I can't cancel my flight. Derek. Wait, seriously? I locked my phone and slid it into my pocket. Megan opened the driver's side door and looked at me over the roof of the car. Beach? She said. Beach. The ocean was 7 minutes away. My family was 300 miles behind me. Karen didn't make it to the resort. I found out later through the group chat, which I read but didn't respond to, that she'd been at the gate when Mom's call came in. Her flight was boarding. Brad was already in his seat. And Mom was on the other end of the line with 5 kids screaming in the background saying, You need to come back. Jessica isn't coming. I can't do this alone. Karen called Brad from the gate. I can only imagine how that conversation went, because what showed up in the group chat was Karen's version, filtered through fury. I had to leave the airport. The resort was $1,200, non-refundable. The change fee on my ticket was $400. That's $1,600 gone because Jessica decided to take a vacation. Brad apparently didn't share her sympathy for Mom. Karen posted in the chat, Brad says this is our problem, not Jessica's. He says he told me this would happen. He literally said, You can't keep dumping your kids on your sister and expect her to say yes forever. I read that message 3 times. Brad, who I'd never heard say more than pass the rolls at Thanksgiving, had said that, out loud. To Karen. By 2 p.m., Karen was back at Mom's house, bags still packed, mascara smudged, standing in the foyer with 5 children who wanted to know why Aunt Jess wasn't there. And that's when Karen asked the question nobody had thought to ask before. Mom, did Jessica actually say she would watch them? Silence. She didn't need to say it, Mom said. She always does it. Karen stared at her. Mom, that's not the same thing. 1 sentence, and in that sentence a crack appeared, thin, quiet, almost invisible. in the wall my mother had spent 4 years building. Derek had always been the quiet one. Not quiet in a thoughtful way. Quiet in a convenient way. The kind of quiet that lets you sit through 4 years of someone being used and never have to say the uncomfortable thing. But on December 23rd, his wife said it for him. Derek and Tina were 2 hours away at her parents' house when Mom called. I pieced this together from his messages in the chat. Mom wants us to come back, Derek posted. She says she can't handle the kids alone. Tina apparently took the phone. What came next wasn't from Derek. The tone was too direct, the punctuation too clean. Linda called and told Derek to drive back to help with the kids. We just got here. My parents cooked all day. We're not leaving. Then, 20 minutes later, Derek posted again. And this time I could tell Tina was standing over his shoulder because he wrote something I'd never seen him write before. An actual opinion. Mom, I think we need to talk about this after Christmas. Jessica might have a point. Mom's reply was instant. A point? She abandoned this family on Christmas Eve. Derek didn't respond, but Tina did. Not in the group chat. She texted me privately. I didn't see it until later that night, sitting on the porch of the Airbnb with a blanket over my knees and the ocean a block away. Hey Jessica, it's Tina. I want you to know something. We pay our babysitter $20 an hour. You watched 5 kids for 3 days last Christmas. That's over $700 in free labor. And your mom called you selfish for stopping. I just want you to know, you're not the selfish one. I read it twice. Then I held the phone against my chest and listened to the waves. My mother has always been good at one thing above all else, controlling the story. She did it when Dad left. She did it when Pauline pulled away. And on the night of December 23rd, she did it again. I was sitting in a small seafood restaurant near the pier, sharing a plate of shrimp with Megan, when my phone started buzzing with numbers I hadn't seen in months. Uncle Ray, Aunt Donna, a cousin from Roanoke I hadn't spoken to since last Easter. Uncle Ray's text. Jessica, your mother says you walked out on the family? That doesn't sound like you. Call her. Aunt Donna. Honey, it's Christmas. Whatever happened, family comes first. A cousin I barely knew. Heard you ditched the kids? That's cold, Jess. Mom had called them. Every one of them. She'd gone down her contact list like a general rallying troops, and she'd told them her version. The one where I vanished without warning. Abandoned 5 helpless children, and ruined Christmas because I wanted a beach vacation. She left out the part where she never asked me. She left out 4 years of unpaid babysitting. She left out the air mattress and the urgent care bill and the group chat messages she thought nobody was reading. Megan watched me scrolling. What are you going to do? Nothing. Not tonight. I set my phone face down on the table and picked up a shrimp. My mother had spent 30 years building the story of who she was, the sacrificing mother, the selfless matriarch, and I'd spent 27 years being a supporting character in it. For the first time, I wasn't playing my part. And she couldn't handle that the show wasn't going the way she directed. But she forgot one thing. Aunt Pauline was in that group chat. And Pauline had been reading every word. At 10:14 p.m., a private message from Pauline. Your mother called Ray and Donna. She's telling everyone you abandoned the kids. I'm not going to sit here and watch her rewrite history. With your permission, I'd like to say something at the video call tomorrow. I replied in 4 seconds. Say whatever you need to say, Aunt Pauline. Just tell the truth. Christmas morning. I woke up to sunlight coming through white curtains and the sound of the ocean. Not an alarm. Not a child crying. Not my mother's voice calling from down the hall. Just waves. Slow, steady, unhurried waves. Megan was already up, padding around the kitchen in socks, making coffee in the little French press that came with the Airbnb. The cottage smelled like fresh grounds and sea air. I sat on the porch in a hoodie with my hands wrapped around a warm mug, and for a full 5 minutes I didn't look at my phone. It was the first Christmas morning in 4 years that I woke up without an alarm someone else set for me. 300 miles north, the other Christmas was happening. I know this because the group chat was still open, still running, still loud. 6:18 a.m. Hey, Linda. The kids are already up. Lily wants to open presents. I can barely keep up. 7:45. Karen. Mom, just let them open the gifts. I'll sort through later. 8:10. Karen again. Noah's crying again. Did you give him the eardrops? 8:30. Linda. I don't know where the eardrops are, Karen. By 9, Karen and Linda were arguing in all caps about who forgot to pack Noah's medication. Brad had texted Karen a single line that showed up in a screenshot she accidentally posted. This was supposed to be our vacation. The chaos I'd been managing alone for 4 years was now distributed among the people who'd created it, and they were drowning. Then, at 9:12, a private message from Derek. Hey, Merry Christmas. I hope you're having a good time wherever you are. A pause. Then a second message. I'm sorry I never said anything. I read it. I didn't reply. Not yet. But something in my chest loosened. Small. Quiet. Like a knot coming undone. Every Christmas at 3 p.m. the Mercer family does a video call. It's been tradition since Uncle Ray figured out Zoom during the pandemic. 15 people. 4 households. 1 hour of forced cheer and someone's kid knocking over the camera. I almost didn't join, but Megan looked at me and said, You're still family, Jess. You just changed the terms. So at 3:02 I tapped in, the screen filled with faces. Uncle Ray and Aunt Donna in their den, a fire in the background. 2 cousins from Roanoke waving, Derek and Tina at her parents' kitchen table. Karen, sitting on the couch at Mom's, eyes red, baby Noah on her lap. And Mom, front and center, Christmas sweater, lipstick on, camera angled just right. Even in crisis she was staging the shot. Then my square appeared. Me, on a porch, in a t-shirt, with the ocean behind me. The reaction was immediate. Oh, look who decided to show up, Mom said. From a beach, no less. Uncle Ray cut in. Linda, let it go. It's Christmas. Let it go? Mom's voice went sharp. She left 5 children without a sitter. On Christmas Eve? Do you know what kind of person does that? I didn't flinch. I'd had 24 hours to prepare for this. Mom, you never asked me to babysit, I said. You told me I was going to. I had plans. I told you I had plans. You ignored me. Plans? A vacation? Over family? When was the last time anyone in this family asked me what I wanted for Christmas? Nobody spoke. 2 seconds. 3. And then, from a small square in the bottom corner of the screen, Aunt Pauline unmuted herself. Linda, she said, I think it's time we talked about this honestly. Every face on that call went still. Pauline's camera was angled slightly upward. You could see the ceiling fan in her living room turning slowly behind her. She was wearing a gray cardigan, reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. Calm the way only someone who's been thinking about this for a long time can be calm. Linda, I love you, she said. You're my sister. But I've been watching what you do to Jessica for 4 years, and I watched you do the same thing to me for 8 years before that. Mom's face tightened. Pauline, this is not about you. Uncle Ray's voice, firm. Linda, let her finish. Pauline continued. I'm in the family group chat. I've read every message, every schedule you sent Jessica without asking, every list Karen forwarded like Jessica was on payroll, and I've seen how you talk about her when you think she isn't paying attention. What are you talking about? Do you want me to read it, Linda? Pauline's voice didn't waver. Because I saved screenshots. Not because I was building a case. Because when I read those messages, I felt sick. And I wanted to remember what it looked like. So I'd never let it happen to anyone else in this family. Pauline, don't you dare. 3 weeks ago, after Thanksgiving, you wrote to Karen. The screen froze. Not technically. Nobody lost their connection. but every single square on that call went motionless. 15 people, 15 tiny rectangles of silence. Pauline paused. She was giving my mother one last chance to stop it herself. Mom said nothing. Watching that call from my porch in Outer Banks, I held my breath. Because I knew what was coming. I knew what those messages said. And in a few seconds, so would everyone else. And I wondered, have you ever had a moment where the truth you'd been afraid of was about to be said out loud by someone you didn't expect? What did that feel like? I'd genuinely love to know. Share it in the comments. Pauline adjusted her glasses, and she began to read. Last Christmas, Pauline said, December 24th, 3:14 p.m., while Jessica was driving 5 children to urgent care because Noah had 102 fever, you wrote this to Karen. She read it slowly, every word precise. She's fine. She likes feeling needed. It gives her something to do. Nobody moved. Karen replied, and I quote, LOL true, better than her sitting alone in that little apartment. On the screen, Karen closed her eyes. Pauline kept going. 2 years ago, after Jessica suggested rotating babysitting duty, you wrote to Karen, I'll handle Jessica. She'll come around. She always does. Mom's mouth opened, but nothing came out. And this one, Pauline said. Her voice dropped half a register. 3 weeks ago, the night after Thanksgiving, after your daughter told you she had plans, and you laughed in her face, you typed this. She held up her phone to the camera so everyone could see the screenshot. Then she read it aloud. Jessica doesn't have a real life anyway. She should be grateful we include her at all. Silence. Not the polite kind. Not the kind where someone's about to change the subject. The kind that presses in from every direction. Heavy. Total. Suffocating. 15 squares on a screen. No one typing. No one shifting. Somewhere in my mother's living room, the furnace clicked on. Through her microphone, I heard something I'd never forget. The soft, barely audible sound of snow falling against the window. 5 seconds. 10. The longest silence in the history of the Mercer family. Uncle Ray broke it. His voice was low, careful, like a man choosing every word on purpose. Linda, is that true? Did you write that? My mother's eyes were wet. Her mouth moved. It was taken out of context. And from the couch behind her, Karen said, Mom, I was in that chat. I read them too. They weren't out of context. What happened next was a masterclass in a person running out of weapons in real time. Mom tried guilt first. She always does. I raised those kids alone, she said, her voice cracking. After their father left. 18 years. No help. No breaks. And this is how you all repay me? By ganging up on me on Christmas Day? Aunt Donna, calm as glass. Linda, nobody is ganging up on you. But what Pauline just read? That's not how you talk about your own daughter. Mom pivoted. Gaslight. Second weapon. Jessica is being dramatic. She's always been the sensitive one. One vacation and suddenly the whole family is against me. Derek, who hadn't spoken up for me once in 4 years, unmuted himself. Mom, she's not being dramatic. His voice was halting, like a man unlearning silence in real time. She asked us to take turns 3 years ago. We all said no. I said nothing. That's on me. Mom stared at his square on the screen. Then she turned to Uncle Ray. Social pressure. Her last play. Ray, you're her uncle. Tell her she's wrong. Tell her family comes first. Uncle Ray didn't blink. Family does come first, Linda. That includes Jessica. And from what I'm hearing, she hasn't come first in a long time. That's when Mom started crying. But even through the tears, even through the shaking, I noticed what she did next. She turned her camera toward the living room, where 5 children sat on the carpet surrounded by wrapping paper. Look at them, she said. They're confused. They don't understand what's happening. This is what Jessica did to them. From somewhere behind the camera, Karen's voice. Tired, raw, done. Mom, stop. Jessica didn't do this. We did. The screen flickered. Karen had moved. and my mother sat alone in the frame, crying into the silence of her own making. I hadn't said a word during any of it. I'd watched from my little square on the screen, the ocean behind me, the wind in my hair, 15 faces staring at a truth that had been sitting in plain sight for years. I hadn't needed to say anything. The messages said it. Pauline said it. Even Karen said it. But now the call had gone quiet, and every rectangle on that screen was looking at me, waiting. So I spoke. "Mom, I love you. I love this family." I kept my voice level. Not angry, not shaking, just clear. "But I spent 4 Christmases being your babysitter. I paid $180 for Noah's urgent care visit that no one reimbursed. I slept on an air mattress in the kids' room. I canceled plans, skipped holidays with friends, and worked extra shifts all year so I could afford one vacation. And you announced I'd be watching the kids without ever asking me." I paused. The wind caught my hair. The waves were there, behind me, steady and indifferent. "You said I don't have a real life?" I looked straight at the camera. "But I do. It's just that none of you ever thought to look." Nobody spoke. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done being the person who gives up her life so everyone else can enjoy theirs. If you want me at Christmas next year, I'll be there, as family, not as staff." The silence held for a long time. Then, from her small square in the corner, Pauline. "Well said, sweetheart." Mom's voice, when it finally came, was small. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I didn't know you felt that way." And I said the only thing left to say. "You didn't ask." Uncle Ray was the one who wrapped it up. "I think we all have some thinking to do," he said. The kind of sentence a man says when he knows the room needs an exit and nobody else will build one. One by one, the squares said their goodbyes. Quiet ones. Aunt Donna waved. The cousins from Roanoke murmured, "Merry Christmas," and clicked off fast. Derek gave a small nod before his screen went dark. Karen didn't say anything. She just looked at the camera for a second, then reached forward and ended the call. Mom turned off her camera without a word. I sat on the porch for a long time after the screen went black. The sun was dropping toward the waterline, turning the sky the color of copper and apricot. Somewhere down the block, someone was grilling. The smell of charcoal drifted up with the salt air. Megan came out with 2 mugs. Chamomile tea, because she knows I don't like coffee afternoon. She sat in the chair next to mine and didn't ask how it went. She'd heard most of it through the screen door. I waited for the guilt to hit. That familiar voice. The one that had whispered for 4 years. "You should have just gone. It would have been easier." But it didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Space. Room to breathe. Like I'd been holding my breath for 4 Christmases and finally, slowly, completely exhaled. At 7 p.m., a text from Karen. "Jess, I'm sorry about the candle comment. And the allergy list? And all of it. I should have said thank you. I should have said it years ago." I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed time. At 7:30, Pauline. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." I typed back. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Pauline. Thank you for telling the truth." Then I put the phone away and listened to the ocean until the sky went dark. Megan and I flew back on the 27th. The Outer Banks airport was small and half empty, and we boarded a regional jet that smelled like recycled air and peanuts. I slept the whole way. First unbroken sleep I'd had in days. When I got back to my apartment, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, clean. The lamp on the nightstand still on from when I'd left in the dark 4 days earlier. Over the next week, the fallout arrived in pieces, like mail you know is coming but still flinch at when it lands. Karen lost $1,600, $1,200 on the non-refundable resort, $400 in flight change fees. She and Brad had what she later described as the worst fight we've had since the twins were born. Brad told her what he'd apparently been thinking for years, that relying on me every Christmas wasn't generosity, it was entitlement. By New Year's, they'd started looking for a professional babysitter, a paid one, Derek Venmo'd me $180 on December 29th. No note. No message. Just the number. The exact amount of Noah's urgent care copay from last year. I stared at it for a while. It was the first time anyone in my family had acknowledged that Bill existed. Tina texted me separately. I told Derek he needs to step up. No more sitting on the sidelines. I'm sorry it took this long. Uncle Ray called me the day after New Year's. I'm glad you spoke up, Jessica. Your mother means well, but she's been so focused on keeping up appearances that she forgot to actually see you. And Mom? Mom didn't call. Not that week. Not a word. The woman who'd texted me daily about nap schedules and eardrops and allergy lists had gone completely, totally silent. That silence said more than 4 years of messages ever had. She called on January 3rd. 10 days of silence, and then her name on my screen at 2 in the afternoon, right when I got home from a shift. I almost let it ring. But I picked up. Because the version of me that answers the phone for her mother isn't gone. She's just not the only version anymore. Jessica. Her voice was careful, rehearsed, like she'd practiced the opening line. I've been thinking, and I know I said things that weren't fair. I noticed she said, weren't fair. Not, were wrong. A small difference, but it told me everything about where she was. I need you to understand, she continued. After your father left, I had to hold everything together. By myself. No one helped me, and somewhere along the way, I got used to counting on you. Maybe too much. I understand that, Mom, but understanding why you did it doesn't mean it was okay. A long breath on the other end. Pauline read those messages in front of everyone, she said. And here it was. The real wound. Do you know how humiliated I felt? I closed my eyes. Mom, I know exactly how that feels, because that's how I felt every time you announced my plans in front of the family without asking me. Silence. The kind that sits between two people who love each other and have finally run out of ways to avoid the truth. I'm sorry, Jessica. Her voice cracked. I am. I should have asked. I should have seen what you were giving up. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. I meant it. I also meant what came next. But things are going to be different now. I'll visit when I can. I'll help when I choose to. But I'm not the default babysitter anymore. A pause. Long enough that I heard the kitchen faucet dripping on her end. Okay, she said. Just that. Quiet. Uncertain. Not comfortable yet. But a door. Cracked open. Barely, from the other side. The first test came 2 weeks later. I drove to Mom's house for Sunday dinner. First time since Thanksgiving. I told myself I'd stay 2 hours. I set an actual timer on my phone. Not because I wanted to be rigid, but because I needed to prove to myself that I could leave on my own terms. The house looked the same. Christmas decorations still up because Mom always waits until mid-January. The porch swing. The black shutters. The wreath on the door. But something was different. When I walked in, the table was set for 2. Not 10. Not 5 kids and an air mattress. Just 2 place settings, 2 glasses of water, and the smell of chicken pot pie. My favorite. Not Lily's. Not Ethan's. Mine. Mom didn't say much. She moved around the kitchen a little slower than usual, a little quieter. She asked me about work. She asked about Megan. She didn't mention babysitting or the video call or the beach. We ate. We talked about small things. The neighbor's new dog, the ice on the roads, whether the diner on Route 15 had changed their menu. It was careful, like 2 people relearning the shape of a conversation they'd been having wrong for years. I stayed an hour and 45 minutes. Then I stood up, kissed her on the cheek, and drove home. 2 days later, Karen called. Hey Jess, we're looking for a sitter for Valentine's weekend. Do you know anyone good? We're willing to pay this time. I gave her the name of a coworker from the clinic. Karen booked her. $20 an hour. No laminated list. Just a normal transaction between a parent and a professional. On my birthday in January, Derek texted the group chat. Happy birthday, Jess. Dinner on me this weekend? First time in 27 years anyone in that family offered to take me out instead of the other way around. I didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped crossing the ones that only went one way. It's February now. The snow outside my apartment window is starting to melt. Slow drips from the gutter, little rivers running down the parking lot toward the storm drain. Spring's not here yet, but you can feel it getting closer. On my fridge, there's a new photo. Me and Megan on the porch of that Airbnb in Outer Banks, coffee mugs raised, the ocean blurred and blue behind us. Next to it, a picture of me and Aunt Pauline from New Year's, her arm around my shoulder. Both of us laughing at something I can't remember now, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that I look happy, genuinely happy, not the performing kind. My mother and I aren't fixed. We may never be. She still slips sometimes, a comment about how it would be nice if you visited more, a pause on the phone that feels like a guilt trip loading, but she catches herself now. Or at least, she tries. And I've learned that trying, even clumsily, is more than I got for 27 years. For a long time, I thought love meant making yourself useful, that if I stopped helping, I'd stop mattering. But here's what I learned sitting on a porch in Outer Banks on Christmas morning while my family scrambled 300 miles away. The people who only value you when you're useful don't value you at all. And the ones who love you, really love you, will still be there when you stop performing. If you're the one in your family who always says yes, the one who cancels plans, covers the cost, watches the kids, sets the table and clears it, and nobody ever asks what you need, I just want you to know this. You're allowed to stop. Not because you don't love them, but because you love yourself enough to finally take up space. That's my story. If it reminded you of yours, I'd love to hear it in the comments. What would you have done? Boarded that plane or stayed? And if you've already drawn a line with your own family, how did it go? Every story down there helps someone else feel less alone. If this one meant something to you, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find these stories when they need them. And if you want another one just like this, check the link in the description. Trust me, that one hits just as hard. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. There's a photograph I took when I was 11 years old. It's a picture of an empty refrigerator, just the light bulb glowing, 3 bare shelves, and a single ketchup packet from a fast food restaurant I'd walked to 6 blocks away. I took that photo on day 9. There were 21 days left to go. My mother was in Paris. She was eating croissants, posting selfies in front of the Eiffel Tower, and falling in love with a man who knew I existed and didn't care. She left me $20, a debit card with no PIN, and a sentence I can still hear in my sleep. You're old enough. Don't be dramatic. I was 11. What happened after she came back, tanned, smiling, rolling 2 designer suitcases through the front door, ended with a CPS officer at our kitchen table and a judge's signature on a custody order. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I go on, if this story speaks to something real in your life, take a moment to like and subscribe. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always read them. My name is Elise. I'm 24 now. Let me take you back to a Tuesday in June, the day my mother handed me a $20 bill and walked out the door for 31 days. But first, before I take you back to that summer, you need to understand something. By the time I was 24, I had built a life that didn't include Janine Holt. Not because I hated her, because I finally had air to breathe. I worked as an administrative assistant at a pediatric clinic on the east side of town. Small office, good people, decent insurance. I lived in a studio apartment with a window that faced a parking lot, which sounds depressing until you've spent a month in a house where the power got cut and the only light came from birthday candles. A parking lot with a working street lamp? That's luxury. My mornings were simple. Coffee, toast, bus to work. I answered phones, filed charts, scheduled appointments for kids who had parents that actually showed up. There's an irony there I didn't appreciate at first. It was a Thursday in October when everything cracked open again. I walked out of the clinic at 5:15, keys in hand, already thinking about the leftover pasta in my fridge. And then I saw her. A woman standing next to my car in the parking lot. Thinner than I remembered. Hair dyed a shade of blonde that didn't quite match her roots. Clothes that looked like they used to be nice. Maybe 2, 3 years ago. It took me a full 4 seconds to recognize my own mother. She smiled. That smile. The one that always meant she needed something. "Hi, baby. You look so grown up." I stopped walking. 3 meters between us. My keys bit into my palm because my hand was shaking and I hadn't noticed until right then. She tilted her head, softened her voice, a move I'd seen 1,000 times. "I wouldn't come all this way if it wasn't important, Elise. You know that." I didn't know that. What I knew was that the last time this woman stood near me, I weighed 67 pounds and a judge had to intervene. But she wasn't done talking. Her second sentence told me everything. "I need your help with something. It won't take long." 13 years of silence, and she opened with a favor. I should have gotten in my car and driven away. I know that now. But there's a thing that happens when you grow up invisible. When someone finally looks at you, even the wrong someone, your body freezes before your brain catches up. I didn't invite her to my apartment. That much I managed. We walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks from the clinic. I ordered black coffee. She ordered a vanilla latte with oat milk and extra foam, then smiled at the barista like they were old friends. She started with small talk. My job, my apartment. "Oh, you look so healthy, so pretty." Compliments that arrived 13 years too late, wrapped in a voice that hadn't earned the right to deliver them. I waited. It didn't take long. Janine was applying for a position at an assisted living facility. Something in patient care. The background check had flagged her. A record in the state central registry. Child neglect, substantiated. Her file. My name. She couldn't get hired. She leaned forward. Lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret instead of asking me to erase one. "All I need is for you to write a letter. Just say the situation was exaggerated, that you were fine. Then sign the expungement request. It's a simple form, Elise." She stirred her latte, eyes steady, waiting. And then she said the thing. "You owe me, Elise. I gave you a roof over your head for 11 years. I made mistakes, fine, but you're not the only one who's suffered." I stared at the foam swirling in her cup. And for a moment I wasn't 24 anymore. I was 11. Standing in front of an open refrigerator with nothing inside but a light bulb and a ketchup packet. The smell of a house that no one had lived in properly for weeks. She said, "mistakes," the way someone says, "traffic." Like it was just something that happened to her. I left the coffee shop without answering her. Didn't explain, didn't argue. Just stood up, dropped $4 on the table for my coffee, and walked out. I could feel her staring at my back through the window as I crossed the parking lot. But I didn't turn around. I drove home. Sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet. Stayed there for maybe 20 minutes, just breathing. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Under the tax folders and the apartment lease, there was a notebook. Floral cover, faded pink and yellow, the spine cracked in 3 places. I hadn't touched it in years. Next to it, a USB drive the size of my thumb, tucked inside a sandwich bag. I picked up the journal, opened it to the first page. The handwriting was small, pencil. The letters tilted slightly to the right the way a child's hand does when she's pressing too hard because she's trying not to shake. Day 1. Mom left. $20. I read that line 3 times. Janine wanted me to say the truth was exaggerated. She wanted me to write a letter telling the state of Ohio that a 31-day absence and $20 was a misunderstanding. So let me tell you the truth, day by day. Exactly as I wrote it. This journal saved my life, and it destroyed hers. But before I take you back to that June, you need to understand why I didn't call anyone. Why a girl who could write in a journal every night and walk 6 blocks to a dollar store couldn't pick up a phone and ask for help. The answer is simple. And it's the worst part of the whole story. I was more afraid of being rescued than being hungry. My mother made sure of that. To understand Janine, you have to picture her the way everyone else saw her. Pretty. Put together. Always the first to laugh at a dinner table. She had this talent for walking into a room and making everyone feel like they'd been waiting for her. At parent-teacher conferences, the rare ones she attended, teachers loved her. "Your mom is so sweet," they'd say. I'd smile. Sure. Sweet. At home, Janine was a different frequency. Not loud, not violent, just absent. Like she was always mentally standing in another room, looking at a version of her life that didn't include me. She told people she was a single mom. She told them she sacrificed everything. And if you only saw the outside, you'd believe it. She worked at a real estate office answering phones. Came home tired. Reheated whatever was cheapest. That part was real. Being a single parent is brutal, and I won't pretend it isn't. But here's what the outside never saw. When I was 8, I got a fever that lasted 4 days. Janine had a friend's birthday party on day 2. She left a pot of soup on the stove, already cold, and told me to take the medicine on the counter. "Don't call me unless it's an emergency," she said, "and a fever isn't an emergency, Elise." When the school scheduled parent conferences, she didn't show. I told my teacher my mom worked the night shift. She didn't. She just didn't want to go. I heard her on the phone once, talking to a coworker. "Being a single mom is the hardest job in the world," she said. She laughed after she said it. That easy, charming laugh. I was eating dinner alone in the kitchen when I heard it. Cereal, because there was nothing else. She knew it was hard. She just didn't want to do it. "I work all week so you can eat, Elise. You could at least not make me feel guilty for wanting one night out." That was her favorite line. She used it so often I stopped counting. Keith Ballard showed up when I was 10. He sold insurance for a mid-size firm, drove a silver sedan he kept spotless, wore polo shirts on weekends, and smelled like department store cologne. He wasn't mean to me. That would have been easier to explain. He just didn't see me. I was furniture, a lamp in the hallway, something Janine had to step around on her way to the life she actually wanted. Every plan he made was, we should. We should try that new Italian place. We should drive to the coast this weekend. We should book that wine tasting. We never included me, and Janine didn't correct him. Not once. The weekends changed first. Friday afternoon, Janine would start getting ready. Curling iron, nice blouse, perfume that smelled like gardenias. Keith's engine would rumble in the driveway at 6. Door would close. I'd hear the car pull away. Then nothing. Until Sunday evening. At first, she asked our neighbor, Mrs. Pritchard, 3 doors down, to check on me. A retired woman with cats and a bird feeder. She'd knock Saturday morning, ask if I needed anything, bring a muffin sometimes. But after a few months, Janine stopped asking her too. I was 10 years old, alone from Friday night to Sunday night. I learned to make ramen, to set an alarm, to lock the deadbolt twice. One evening, Janine forgot to pick me up from school. Just forgot. She and Keith were at dinner somewhere. I sat on the bench out front for 2 hours while the sky turned dark, and the security guard finally called her. She pulled up smiling, told the guard, "Oh my God, work was crazy today. I'm so sorry." In the car, silence. Not one word, not one apology. The engine hummed. Keith's cologne lingered on the passenger seat. I deserve to be happy too, Elise. Don't make me feel bad for living my life. I started writing in a journal that fall. Not because anyone told me to, because if I didn't write it down, I'd start believing none of it was real. There was one person in the world who made me feel like I existed. My grandmother, Ruth Perry. Every Sunday when I was little, before Keith, before the weekends alone, Grandma Ruth would pick me up and take me to her house. She had a small kitchen that always smelled like butter and rosemary. She'd cook while I read at the table, and sometimes she'd quiz me on vocabulary words while stirring gravy. She bought me my first journal, a purple one with a butterfly on the cover. "Write down the things that matter," she told me, "even the hard things. Especially the hard things." But Janine and Ruth did not get along. It started the year I turned 9. Ruth pulled Janine aside after a Sunday lunch and said quietly but clearly, "Janine, You're not taking care of that girl the way she needs. That was the end. Janine drove us home in silence. By the following week, Ruth's number had been deleted from the house phone. When I asked for Grandma's address, Ruth had sold her old house and moved to a smaller place. Janine said, "Your grandma doesn't want to see you anymore, Elise. She told me that herself." I was 9. I believed my mother. It wasn't true. None of it. Ruth had tried. She drove to our house 3 times that year and knocked on the door. Janine didn't answer. Ruth sent birthday cards every single year. Janine intercepted them all. I found this out much later, and when I did, something inside me cracked in a place I didn't know I'd been holding together. 3 knocks on our door. I can picture it. The doorbell ringing once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. Ruth standing on the porch with a card in her hand, waiting for a door that would never open. "Your grandma is toxic, Elise. She wants to control everything. That's why I had to cut her off. For us. For us." She always said us when she meant herself. "The last piece you need before I take you into that summer is the lock Janine put on my silence." I was 10. My teacher that year, Mrs. Goodwin, had noticed something. I brought the same lunch every day. A peanut butter sandwich on white bread. Nothing else. One afternoon she asked gently, "Elise, does your mom pack your lunch, or do you make it yourself?" I almost told her the truth. Almost. But I caught myself and said my mom was just really busy. Mrs. Goodwin nodded. Let it go. That night I made the mistake of mentioning it, just casually. "My teacher asked about my lunches today." Janine's face changed. Not angry. Scared. The kind of scared that has nothing to do with your child and everything to do with yourself. She sat me down at the kitchen table, grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to hold. "If you ever tell anyone what happens in this house, they will take you away. Do you understand? You will go to a group home. No birthday, no Christmas. No one will want you. Is that what you want, Elise?" I shook my head. "Good. Then we keep our business in this house. That's what families do." That was the lock, and I carried it in my chest for years. 2 months later, Janine came home glowing. She and Keith had booked a trip. 4 weeks in Europe, Paris, Rome, Barcelona. She showed me the itinerary on her phone like she was showing me a report card. I said, "What about me?" She barely looked up. "You'll be fine. You're practically a teenager." She didn't call Grandma Ruth. Didn't ask Mrs. Pritchard. Didn't arrange anyone. June 3rd. A Tuesday morning. Janine zipped 2 red suitcases, left a $20 bill on the kitchen counter next to a debit card I didn't have the PIN for, and walked toward the front door. She didn't hug me. She didn't look back. "There's food in the freezer. Don't answer the door for strangers. And Elise, don't be dramatic." The sound of those suitcase wheels rolling across the tile. Then the door. Then the car engine. Then nothing. 31 days of nothing. I stood at the window and watched her car turn the corner. I waited for brake lights. For the car to stop. For her to realize what she was doing and come back. The street went empty. I turned around. The house had a sound I'd never noticed before. The hum of the refrigerator. The tick of the wall clock. And underneath all of it, a kind of silence that presses against your ears. The silence of a place with no one else in it. I opened the fridge, half a carton of milk, a few slices of processed cheese still in the plastic, a squeeze bottle of mustard, 1 packet of ramen on the shelf above the stove. In the freezer, 3 boxes of store-brand pizza, the kind that costs $1.99 each. I sat down at the kitchen table and counted. $20. The dollar store 6 blocks away sold ramen in packs of 4 for $1. Peanut butter, $1.50. Bread, $1. If I ate 1 meal a day, I could stretch the cash to maybe 10 days. That left 21 days with no plan. I didn't write in my journal that first night. I just lay in bed and listened to the house breathe. Day 2, I walked to the grocery store on the corner. A real one, not the dollar store. And tried the debit card. The machine asked for a PIN. I guessed Janine's birthday. Wrong. I tried the year I was born. Wrong. I tried 1, 2, 3, 4. Wrong. The screen locked me out. The cashier gave me a look that still lives somewhere in my stomach. I walked home with nothing. Day 3, I opened my journal. Day 3. I ate cereal without milk. The milk went bad. I poured it down the sink, and the smell made me gag. Mom didn't call. She didn't call on day 1 either. I checked the phone twice. No signal. The phone doesn't work. I wrote because if I didn't write, I would cry. And if I started crying, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop. I wasn't scared yet. Not the real kind. That came on day 7. Day 5. I knocked on Mrs. Pritchard's door. 3 knocks. Waited. 3 more. Waited. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Her blinds were drawn. I tore a page from my journal and wrote a note. Mrs. Pritchard, this is Elise from 2 doors down. Can you please call me when you're back? I slid it under her door and walked home. She never called. I found out later she was visiting her son in Michigan. Gone the whole month of June. My one neighbor. Gone. Day 6. I picked up the house phone. I already knew, but I did it anyway. Held it to my ear. Nothing. No dial tone. No static. Just dead plastic. I pressed it to my ear 7 times that day, like maybe the 7th time would be different. Janine hadn't paid the phone bill. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she didn't. I could have walked somewhere. The police station was maybe 12 blocks away. I knew where it was. I'd passed it on the school bus. I put my shoes on. I stood at the front door with my hand on the knob, and I heard her voice. They will take you away. Group home. No birthday, no Christmas. No one will want you. I took my shoes off, sat on the floor, stayed there until the light through the curtains turned orange. That night, I opened the laptop. Janine's old desktop computer that she'd left because it was too heavy to take. The Wi-Fi was dead, but sometimes, if I sat near the back wall of the kitchen, a faint signal leaked in from a neighbor's unsecured network. Enough to load 1 page if I waited long enough. I checked Janine's bank account. The joint one. The one my name was technically on. The one the locked debit card was connected to. Balance. $0. She'd withdrawn the last $40 before she left. Day 7. I'm scared, but I can't tell anyone because then everything will get worse. I have $11 left. $11. 24 days to go. By day 9, I could feel my body starting to argue with me. Not hunger the way you think about it. Not the I skipped lunch kind. The kind that sits low in your stomach and hums. A constant, low-frequency ache. I was eating once a day. A peanut butter sandwich if I had bread. Plain ramen if I didn't. The 3 frozen pizzas had been gone since day 6. On day 10, I walked to the dollar store. I had $7 and change left. I needed ramen, bread, maybe another jar of peanut butter if I could swing it. I was doing the math in my head when I passed the display rack near the registers. Disposable cameras. $3.99. I don't know why I picked one up. That's not true. I do know. I knew exactly why. Because when Janine came home, she would say I was lying. She would say I was being dramatic. She would roll her eyes and tell me there was food in the house the whole time. I'd watched her do it my entire life. Reshape the story until what actually happened stopped being real. Not this time. I bought the camera. I went home. I opened the refrigerator and took a photograph. Bare shelves. 1 light bulb. A ketchup packet from a fast food restaurant that I'd walked to 3 days earlier and spent $1.07 on a small fries. I photographed the bank statement on the computer screen. $0. I photographed the calendar hanging next to the stove, each day crossed off in pencil. I photographed the note I'd left under Mrs. Pritchard's door, still visible through the gap. Day 12. The power went out. No warning. Just darkness. The hum of the refrigerator stopped, and the house went so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Janine hadn't paid the electric bill either. I found a box of birthday candles in the junk drawer. 12 left from my 10th birthday. The only birthday she'd bothered with a cake. I lit one. Sat at the kitchen table with my journal. The candle made my shadow huge on the wall. Then I remembered the computer had a webcam, and the UPS battery backup still had a charge. I opened the laptop. Hit record. I didn't plan what to say. I just talked. Day 12. It's dark. The lights went out. I'm talking to the camera because there's no one else. The file saved to the hard drive. I didn't know what it was worth. I just didn't want to be alone in the dark without a voice, even if it was my own. 4 birthday candles left. I discovered the church on day 13. 4 blocks south, past the laundromat and the auto parts store. A brick building with a hand-painted sign that read, Community Meal, Saturdays 11 a.m. I'd walked by it 100 times on school days and never once paid attention. I showed up that Saturday at 10:50, stood at the end of a line that stretched along the sidewalk. Nobody asked my name. Nobody asked why an 11-year-old was standing in a food line alone. I was tall for my age. Maybe they assumed I was 13, 14. Maybe they just didn't want to make it worse by asking. A woman in a green apron handed me a paper bag. Bread, 2 cans of soup, an apple. She smiled at me. A real one. Not Janine's smile. I almost cried right there on the sidewalk. I held it together by biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted copper. Saturday. Got bread, canned soup, and an apple. The lady at the church smiled at me. I almost cried. 2 days later, the neighbor's Wi-Fi signal drifted through again. I sat on the kitchen floor with the laptop and waited for Janine's social media page to load. It took 4 minutes. And there she was. Rome. Golden light. Janine in a sundress, holding a gelato cone, laughing at something Keith said. The Colosseum behind them, out of focus but unmistakable. Her caption, Living my best life. #Eurotrip. #blessed. The next photo, a restaurant patio, white tablecloth, wine glasses. Caption, Missing my baby girl back home. Can't wait to bring her souvenirs. Missing me. She missed me so much she posted about it instead of calling. So much she didn't leave a working phone number. So much she drained the bank account before she left. I didn't cry. I took a screenshot. Day 17. Mom posted pictures. She wrote, blessed. I ate canned soup in the dark. 11 days left. She was coming back. And everything she'd built, the image, the story, the version of herself that other people believed, was going to collapse. But not because of me, because of my 6th grade teacher. The school district ran a summer enrichment program for 2 weeks at the end of June. I didn't sign up because I wanted to learn. I signed up because they served lunch. Day 25. First day of the program. I put on the cleanest clothes I had, a t-shirt that hung looser than it used to, and jeans I'd been tightening with a hair tie through the belt loop. I walked to school the way I'd walked everywhere that month. 1 foot, then the other, slow enough to save energy. It was 91 degrees that day, the kind of heat that sits on your chest. We were outside for physical education. The teacher had us running laps. I made it halfway around the track before my vision went white at the edges. The ground tilted. My knees gave out. I don't remember hitting the grass. When I opened my eyes, I was in the nurse's office. Cool cloth on my forehead, a box of crackers on the table, a juice box already opened, straw already in, and a woman sitting in the chair beside me, watching me the way no one had watched me in a very long time. Mrs. Helen Whitfield, 6th grade English. She had reading glasses pushed up on her head and a lanyard full of keys around her neck. She didn't look scared. She looked focused, the kind of focus that means someone is paying attention for real. Elise, how long have you been eating like this? I reached for the crackers instead of answering. She waited. Then, quieter. Elise, who's taking care of you this summer? Janine's voice. Group home. No one will want you. I looked down. Mrs. Whitfield leaned forward. Not crowding me, just closer. Elise, You don't have to protect anyone right now. Just tell me the truth. I held the juice box with both hands. They were shaking. The straw rattled against the foil. My mom is in Europe. She's been gone for 25 days. Mrs. Whitfield stopped breathing. 3 full seconds. I know because I counted. Then she put her hand on my shoulder, light, steady, and said, "You did the right thing, honey. I'm going to help you now." She stood up. She walked to the phone on the wall. She dialed. But she didn't call my mother. She called CPS. They came the next morning. Donna Chase was a caseworker with the county's Department of Children and Family Services. Mid-40s, short brown hair, a navy blazer over a white blouse that she wore like a uniform. She carried a clipboard in a canvas bag, and she knocked on my front door at 9:15, with Mrs. Whitfield standing one step behind her. I opened the door. The house behind me said everything I couldn't. No lights. The power was still off. The air inside was stale and warm. The kind of thick that clings to your skin when a house hasn't been properly opened in weeks. The kitchen counter had 3 empty cans of soup lined up next to the sink. The trash hadn't been taken out because I couldn't reach the dumpster lid in the alley. Donna Chase didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Oh my God." She just walked through the house slowly, the way someone does when they're reading a room the way you read a page. She opened the refrigerator. She looked at the calendar. She noted the crossed-off days. 26 X marks in pencil. Then she turned to me. "Elise, do you have any records? Anything you wrote down or saved?" I went to my bedroom and came back with the journal, the floral one, faded pink and yellow. I handed it to her. Donna opened it, read the first line, turned the page, read the next. She didn't speak for a long time. She just kept turning pages, each one dated, each one written in careful pencil by a child who had no one to talk to except a notebook. When she looked up, her eyes were red. I showed her the disposable camera. 22 exposures. I showed her the folder on the laptop. The webcam recordings. Day 12 in the dark. Day 15. Quieter. Day 20. Barely whispering. Donna took photos of every page. Click, click, click. The sound of the shutter was the loudest thing in that house in weeks. She turned to Mrs. Whitfield. Her voice was low, but I heard it. "This is one of the most documented cases I've ever seen from a child this age, and she didn't even know she was building a case." Then she knelt in front of me, eye level. "Elise, you are not in trouble. You haven't done anything wrong. I need you to understand that." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. "We're going to find your grandmother." Donna Chase made 3 phone calls that afternoon. It took less than an hour to find Ruth Perry. She lived 45 minutes away. Same county. A 2-bedroom rental near a community garden. She'd been there for 3 years, ever since Janine cut her off, and she'd never stopped trying to reach me. Donna confirmed it. Letters sent, cards returned, visits unanswered. Janine had built a wall between me and the one person who actually cared, and she'd told me it was the other way around. Day 27, 4 days before Janine's flight home. I was sitting on the front steps when the car pulled up. A blue sedan, older model, clean. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. Silver hair in a low braid, glasses on a chain around her neck. Sneakers, jeans, a cardigan that looked like she'd been wearing it since I was small. She saw me. She stopped moving. 1 foot on the curb, one still in the street. Her hand came up to her mouth and stayed there. I was thinner. She could see that from the driveway. My collarbones showed through my t-shirt. My shorts hung low on my hips. She walked to me slowly like she was afraid I might disappear. Then she held me, and I smelled it. Butter and rosemary. The same as when I was 6, 7, 8. Sunday mornings in her kitchen, vocabulary words over gravy. A smell I thought I'd never get back. "I'm here," she said. "I'm not leaving." She signed the emergency guardianship forms that afternoon. I packed a backpack, journal, camera, the USB drive I'd copied the webcam files onto, and 2 changes of clothes. That was everything I owned that mattered. In the car, Ruth opened the trunk. Inside, a gift bag with tissue paper. She set it in my lap. I've been keeping your birthday presents, every year. I kept hoping. Inside the bag, 5 birthday cards. One for every year since I'd turned 9. Each one signed in blue ink, each one with the same line. I love you, Elise. I'm still here. 5 cards Janine had never let me see. That first night at Ruth's house, I slept 9 hours straight. I hadn't done that in 30 days. She made scrambled eggs in the morning, set a glass of orange juice next to my plate without asking if I wanted it, sat across from me and said nothing while I ate. She didn't need to talk. She just needed to be there. And she was. But the clock was ticking. Donna Chase came by that afternoon. She sat with Ruth at the kitchen table and I stayed in the next room. The door was open, and I wasn't trying to hide the fact that I was listening. Donna didn't seem to mind. The file has been opened, Donna said. Child neglect, substantiated. When Ms. Holt returns to the country, she'll be contacted by our office. We've coordinated with local police. No one's going to meet her at the airport. That's not how we do this. But when she arrives at the house, there will be someone there. Ruth nodded. Her jaw was tight. What happens to Elise? You have temporary emergency custody. That holds until the family court hearing. Given what we've documented, I expect the court to formalize something longer term. I sat on the floor of the hallway, knees pulled to my chest. I could hear everything. And inside me, 2 things were fighting. Part of me wanted it. Wanted someone to look at what she'd done and say it out loud. Wanted a judge, a file, a record, proof that I wasn't dramatic. That this was real. That it mattered. And part of me, the part that still called her mom in my head, was terrified. Because once this happened, there was no pretending anymore. No going back to the version of us where she was just a tired single mom, and I was just a quiet kid. Have you ever wanted justice and been scared of it at the same time? Wanted someone to be held accountable but also wished you didn't have to be the reason it happened? If you know that feeling, tell me in the comments. Because at 11 years old, I didn't have a name for it. I just knew my hands wouldn't stop shaking. 3 days. In 3 days, she would walk through that door expecting everything to be exactly as she left it. July 4th, Independence Day. You can't make this stuff up. Janine's flight landed at 4:17 in the afternoon. I know the exact time because Donna Chase called Ruth to confirm. I was sitting on the porch steps at Ruth's house, watching the neighbor kids set up sparklers in their driveway. I could smell hot dogs grilling 2 houses down. Somewhere down the block, someone set off a bottle rocket and a dog barked. Inside, the phone rang once. Ruth picked it up. I heard her say, "Understood. Thank you." She came to the screen door. Donna says they're in position. Elise, you stay here with me. I nodded. I wasn't there when it happened. Everything I'm about to tell you, I learned from Donna Chase's report and from Ruth, who spoke with Donna that same evening. But I've imagined it so many times that it plays in my head like a movie I can't turn off. Janine and Keith took a cab from the airport. 2 suitcases each. Designer stuff. Matching luggage sets they'd bought in Barcelona. Janine's skin was tan. She had new sunglasses pushed up on her head. She was laughing about something when the cab pulled up to the house. Keith pulled the bags out of the trunk. Janine walked up the driveway, keys already in her hand. She might have noticed the unmarked sedan parked 2 houses down. She might not have. She unlocked the front door, stepped inside, called out like she always did when she came home from work and expected me to be waiting. Elise, I'm home. The house answered with the same silence I'd been living in for 31 days. She kept walking. She turned the corner into the kitchen, and she stopped. Donna Chase was sitting at the kitchen table. Not standing. Sitting. Calm. Hands folded on a manila folder. Beside her, the journal. My journal. Open to a page near the middle. Next to it, a row of photographs laid out in order. The refrigerator. The calendar. The bank statement at $0. A still frame from the webcam. Me, sitting in the dark, lit by the glow of a laptop screen, ribs visible through my shirt. A uniformed officer stood near the back door, quiet, arms at his sides. Donna looked up. "Ms. Holt, please come in." Janine didn't move. I imagine this is the moment her brain tried to rewrite the scene. Tried to find the version where this made sense, where she was still the protagonist, where there was an explanation that ended with her being right. She couldn't find one. 3 seconds of absolute silence. No one breathed. The only sound in that kitchen was the hum of the refrigerator, the same one I'd listened to for 31 nights. Donna had called the electric company 2 days earlier to restore the power. The house was lit. Every detail visible. Janine's suitcase hit the floor. The handle clattered against the tile. No, this can't be happening." Donna's voice didn't change. Flat. Professional. The kind of calm that sounds louder than shouting. "Ma'am, please sit down. We have some questions." Behind Janine, Keith appeared in the hallway. He saw the officer. He saw the photographs on the table. He took 1 step backward. "Where is she?" Janine's voice cracked, but it wasn't worry. I know what her worry sounds like. I'd never heard it directed at me. This was the sound of someone realizing the audience had changed. "Where is my daughter?" Donna Chase didn't blink. "Your daughter is safe, Ms. Holt. She's been safe for about 48 hours now, the first time in a month." Janine sat down. And then she did what she had done her entire life. She started performing. The tears came fast, 3 seconds flat, perfectly timed. She pressed her fingertips under her eyes like she was protecting mascara that didn't need protecting. "There's been a misunderstanding. I arranged for my neighbor to check on her. Mrs. Pritchard. She was supposed to come by every day. I don't know what—" "Mrs. Pritchard was out of state the entire month of June," Donna said. "We confirmed with her directly. She had no knowledge of any arrangement." Janine shifted. The tears kept coming, but her eyes were scanning. Donna's face. The officer. The photographs. Calculating. Elise has a tendency to exaggerate. She's always been sensitive. She probably just didn't answer the door when... Donna picked up one of the photographs. The refrigerator. Bare shelves. Light bulb. Ketchup packet. "Is this exaggerated, Ms. Holt?" Janine looked at it. Looked away. "I'm a single mother." Her voice rose. "Do you have any idea how hard it is? I work 50 hours a week. I needed a break. One break. Every parent." The officer spoke for the first time. Quiet, but the kind of quiet that fills a room. "Ma'am, you left a minor child unattended for 31 days with $20 and no working phone. That is not a break." Janine's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then Donna did something that I think about to this day. She turned the laptop on the table around. She pressed play on a file. My voice. 11 years old. In the dark. Day 12. It's dark. The lights went out. I'm talking to the camera because there's no one else. The video played for 41 seconds. My face lit by the screen. My ribs through my shirt. The birthday candle melted to a stub on the table behind me. Janine turned her face away. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "Oh my God." She turned away from the screen the way you turn away from something you don't want to see, not because it's painful, but because it's proof. "Ms. Holt, I want to make sure you understand," Donna said. "We are not here because Elise reported you. We're here because her teacher saw a child who was starving." What happened next was procedural, methodical. The kind of quiet devastation that arrives on official letterhead. Donna Chase informed Janine that the Department of Children and Family Services had opened a formal case. The finding, child neglect, substantiated. Her name would be entered into the state central registry. A permanent record accessible by any employer in healthcare, education, childcare, elder care, or any field involving vulnerable populations. A family court hearing would be scheduled within 14 days. Temporary emergency custody of Elise Monroe had already been transferred to Ruth Perry, maternal grandmother. "You can't do this," Janine said. Her voice was small now, deflated. "She's my daughter." "The court will determine that, ma'am." Keith stood in the hallway the entire time. He hadn't sat down. hadn't spoken since they'd arrived. Now Donna turned to him. "Mr. Ballard, your name appears in our records as a cohabitating adult who was aware of the child's living situation and participated in the trip abroad. We'll need a statement from you as well." Keith's face went gray. "I didn't know. I thought she had arrangements. I thought someone was—" "You purchased both plane tickets, Mr. Ballard. Your credit card. We have the transaction records." Keith looked at Janine. Not with love. Not with anger. With the cold, calculating look of a man measuring the distance between himself and the nearest exit. "Keith?" Janine's voice had that edge. The one I recognized from childhood. The one that meant, stand by me or else. Keith said nothing. He looked at the floor. And in that silence, something between them broke. Not dramatically. Not with a fight. It just cracked. Quietly. The way ice cracks on a pond before it gives way. He hired his own lawyer the following week. Separate representation. He wanted his name off her file. The relationship was over. Not ended by a breakup, but by a liability assessment. Donna placed a single sheet of paper on the kitchen table. The hearing notice. The sound it made when it touched the wood was almost nothing, a whisper of paper against oak. But to Janine, it might as well have been a gavel. "I gave her everything," Janine said. "To no one. To the room. Everything. And this is what I get." The family court hearing took place on a Wednesday morning in a building that smelled like floor wax and coffee that had been sitting too long. I wore a blue polo shirt that Ruth had bought me the week before. She'd ironed it that morning. I remember watching the steam rise off the collar while she pressed it. Careful. Precise. The way someone prepares you for a thing that matters. She drove us downtown without the radio on. Neither of us talked. There wasn't much to say that the next 2 hours wouldn't say for us. Janine was already seated when we walked in. She had a lawyer, a man in a gray suit that Keith had apparently paid for before cutting contact. Janine's hair was pulled back. She was wearing lipstick. Even here, even now, she was performing for an audience. The county attorney representing CPS was a woman named Sandra Webb. Mid-50s, glasses on a chain. She spoke the way Donna Chase wrote reports. Clean, factual, without decoration. She read from my journal. Day 1. Mom left. $20. The room was still. Day 7. I'm scared, but I can't tell anyone because then everything will get worse. I looked at my hands. Day 12. No lights. I found birthday candles in the junk drawer. I have 4 left. Someone in the gallery shifted in their seat. That was the only sound. Day 25. I fainted today. A teacher helped me. She was the first person to ask if I was okay. Sandra set the journal down. The courtroom had the particular silence of a room full of people who are each privately imagining a child alone in the dark with a birthday candle. Judge Margaret Haynes looked at Janine over the rim of her glasses. "Ms. Holt, do you dispute any of the entries in this journal?" Janine's lawyer leaned in. Whispered something. Janine straightened. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded. Then, "Ms. Holt, where is the debit card you left for your daughter?" It was in her name. She had access. "The card was locked, Ms. Holt. The PIN was never provided to the child. Were you aware of that?" Janine opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. The clock on the wall ticked 5 times before the judge spoke again. "I've been on this bench for 19 years, Judge Haynes said. "This journal is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence I have ever received from a minor." She paused. Not for drama, for weight. The court finds as follows. Full legal custody of Elise Monroe, minor child, was transferred to Ruth Perry effective immediately. Janine Holt's parental rights were not terminated. That's a different process. But her custodial rights were stripped. She would be permitted supervised visitation, twice monthly, only if Elise consented. The finding of substantiated child neglect would remain in the state central registry, permanently. Any employer conducting a background check in healthcare, education, social services, elder care, or child care would see it. There was no expiration date. Keith Ballard, listed as a knowledgeable cohabitating adult, received a separate finding: failure to report suspected neglect of a minor. Prohibited from unsupervised contact with any non-biological minor child. Janine sat at the defendant's table. Her lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder. She was crying. Real tears this time. I could tell the difference because I'd spent 11 years studying the fake ones. These were the tears of someone watching something slip away. But the thing she was mourning wasn't me. It was control. The ability to shape the story. That's what broke her. When we walked out of the courtroom, Janine was in the hallway. Ruth held my hand and kept walking, eyes forward, but Janine stepped into our path. She looked at me, and for a moment I thought, maybe now. Maybe the words, "I hope you're happy now." That was it. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I failed you. I hope you're happy now." She walked past me and I caught a trace of her perfume. Something expensive. Something new. Bought on a trip paid for with money that should have fed me. Ruth squeezed my hand once. Hard. We kept walking. Ruth's house was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with a window over the sink that faced a row of tomato plants she'd been tending for years. Nothing about it was fancy. Everything about it was real. The first morning, I woke up to the sound of eggs cracking into a pan. I came into the kitchen and there was a plate, toast, eggs, a glass of juice. Ruth was already sitting across the table reading the newspaper, like this was just a regular Tuesday. Like I'd been there all along. "How was your day?" she asked every single evening. Sometimes I said fine, sometimes I said bad. She listened either way. She never once told me I was being dramatic. The years after that moved the way years do when they're not being survived. They just passed. 7th grade, 9th grade. I started making friends. Real ones. I joined the school's creative writing club because a teacher told me I was good with words. By sophomore year, I was submitting short stories to the school magazine. By senior year, I won an essay contest. Ruth taped the certificate to her refrigerator. It was still there last Thanksgiving. She wasn't rich. Her pension from 26 years as a postal worker covered the bills and not much else. But there was always food in the fridge. The lights always worked. And every single birthday, there was cake. I turned 18, graduated, got a job, started community college at night, moved into my own place at 20. It was a studio the size of Ruth's kitchen, but the lease was in my name and the door locked from the inside. Janine never called, never wrote, never showed up for a single supervised visit. I used to wonder if that meant she didn't love me. Eventually, I realized it meant the same thing it always had. I was only useful to her when I served a purpose. At 22, I got the job at the pediatric clinic, filed charts, answered phones, helped nervous parents check in their kids. I hadn't opened the journal in years. It sat in my desk drawer, quiet, the way a fire alarm sits on the wall. You don't think about it until you need it. Then, on a Thursday in October, Janine was standing next to my car, and I understood. The alarm was about to go off again. I thought she'd take the hint. After I walked out of that coffee shop without a word, I thought, that's it. 13 years of nothing, and now she'll go back to nothing. Janine had always been efficient about cutting people off. I'd watched her do it to Ruth, to friends, to co-workers. I assumed she'd extend me the same courtesy. She didn't. Day 1 after the coffee shop, a text from a number I didn't recognize. I just want to talk. Please, Elise, that's all I'm asking. Day 3. You can't ignore me forever. I am your mother. Day 5. She called Ruth. Ruth told me about it that evening, her voice the particular kind of flat it gets when she's angry but choosing not to yell. Janine had cried on the phone, told Ruth that I was being cruel, ungrateful, that all she wanted was a chance to make things right, and her own daughter wouldn't even speak to her. Ruth listened. Then she said, Janine, you had 11 years of chances. I'm hanging up now. She hung up. But on day 7, Janine found another angle. She tracked down one of my coworkers on Facebook. a girl named Dana from the front desk, and sent her a private message. Please tell my daughter to call me. I'm her mother, and she won't speak to me. I don't know what I did wrong. Dana showed me the screenshot on her lunch break. She looked uncomfortable. I didn't respond to it, but I thought you should see this. I stared at the message. The words "I don't know what I did wrong" sat in my chest like a splinter. Part of me, the old part, the 11-year-old part, whispered, "Just sign the paper. Give her what she wants. It's easier. You're fine now. It doesn't matter anymore." But I went home that night and opened the drawer. I took out the journal. Turned to day 12. No lights. I found birthday candles in the junk drawer. I have 4 left. It still mattered. "I've changed, Elise," her last text read. "But you won't even give me a chance. What does that say about you?" It said I finally learned what she spent 11 years trying to beat out of me, that I was allowed to say no. I called the legal aid clinic at my old community college on a Monday morning. I knew about the clinic because I'd walked past their office every semester for 2 years, free consultations for students and alumni. I'd never needed them before. Now I did. The attorney who took my case was named Paul Beckett. Late 30s, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of guy who drinks his coffee black and keeps a pen behind his ear. He listened to everything, the texts, the Facebook message, the coffee shop ambush. He asked calm, precise questions. He didn't look surprised. "We can send a cease and desist letter," he said. "It's not a court order, but it puts her on formal notice. If she contacts you again, directly or through a third party, or shows up at your workplace, we file for a restraining order. That one has teeth." He drafted it that afternoon. I read it twice, signed it once. The letter was addressed to Janine Marie Holt. Not Mom, not Janine. Her full legal name, printed on a letterhead with the legal clinic's address, citing specific dates, specific incidents, specific statutes. At the bottom, I asked Paul to include a paragraph. It wasn't required. It wasn't legal language, but I needed to say it. "I will not sign any document to expunge your record. That record exists because of choices you made." I was 11. I did not choose to be left alone. I will not choose to erase the truth now. Paul raised an eyebrow when he read it. Then he nodded. "I'll include it." The letter went out via certified mail. Return receipt requested. Paul also told me something that landed like a stone in still water. Even if I had signed Janine's form, the expungement almost certainly would have been denied. A substantiated finding in the state central registry requires significant new evidence to overturn, not just a victim's letter. Janine had told me, "Just sign and it goes away." It wouldn't have. She was manipulating me. Again. One more performance. One more script she needed me to follow. The printer hummed. The pen scratched paper. The envelope sealed shut. I didn't write that letter to hurt her. I wrote it so she would know. The little girl who was afraid of group homes doesn't live here anymore. 5 days after the letter was mailed, Janine came to my workplace. Monday, 9 in the morning. I was at the reception desk entering patient records. The waiting room was half full, a mother bouncing a toddler on her knee, an elderly man flipping through a magazine, a teenager with earbuds and a splinted wrist. The front door opened, cool air from outside. Janine, different from the parking lot. Thinner, hair messier, eyes rimmed red. But that could have been real or rehearsed. She wore a wrinkled coat and sneakers that didn't match her purse. She looked like someone losing a fight with her own life and blaming the referee. "We need to talk, right now. I'm not leaving until you listen to me." The toddler's mother looked up. The teenager took one earbud out. I stood. Here's what I did not do. I did not shout. I did not cry. I did not apologize. I did not reach for the phone. I spoke at the same volume I use when I tell a parent their child's appointment has been moved to Tuesday. "Janine, you were sent a cease and desist letter 5 days ago. You are at my workplace. I'm going to ask you one time to leave. Don't call me Janine. I am your mother." I looked at her. Directly. The way I couldn't when I was 11. The way I'd spent 13 years learning how to. A mother does not leave her 11-year-old alone for a month with $20 and no phone. You lost that title in a courtroom 13 years ago. The waiting room went silent. The mother holding the toddler pulled her child closer against her chest. The old man lowered his magazine. The teenagers stared. Nobody moved. Janine stood in the center of that silence with her mouth open and nothing coming out. My office manager, Linda, appeared from the back hallway. She'd heard everything. She positioned herself between Janine and the reception desk, arms crossed. "Ma'am, I need you to leave, now, or I'm calling the police." Janine looked around the room, every face, looking for someone who would take her side. The mother, the old man, the teenager. Nobody moved. She turned, walked out. The glass door closed behind her with a soft pneumatic hiss. I sat down. My hands were steady. My heart was not. But I didn't need it to be. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The truth is already loud enough when you stop whispering it. Linda called the police non-emergency line before Janine's car left the parking lot. It wasn't dramatic. No sirens, no handcuffs. An officer came by 40 minutes later, took my statement, accepted the copy of the cease and desist I kept in my work bag, and wrote it up. Violation of a cease and desist notice. Documented. Forwarded to the county attorney's office. The officer, a woman about my age, short hair, steady eyes, explained it plainly. If she contacts you again in any form, in person, by phone, through a third party, you can petition for a restraining order. At that point, any further contact becomes a criminal matter. I signed the incident report. She tore off my copy. The paper was thin, the kind that smudges if you press too hard. Dana brought me a cup of water after the officer left. She sat in the chair next to my desk and said nothing. Just sat there. Sometimes the best thing a person can do is be present without needing to fix anything. I called Ruth on my lunch break. Sat in my car in the parking lot with the engine off. "It's over, Grandma." A pause. Then Ruth's voice, warm and certain, the way it always was when things that needed to happen had finally happened. "Good. Come home for dinner tonight. I'm making your favorite." I have thought many times about what it would have been like if no one had ever seen me. If Mrs. Whitfield hadn't knelt next to me in that nurse's office, if Donna Chase hadn't turned to the right page, if Ruth hadn't picked up the phone. At what point does a person stop being invisible? I used to think it was when someone finally looks at you, but I think now it's when you stop hiding. When you stand up at a reception desk and say a true sentence out loud and don't apologize for it. I was 24 years old, and for the first time, I wasn't performing invisibility. I was done. Let me tell you what happened to Janine. Not because it brings me joy, but because consequences are the only language some people hear. The job at the assisted living facility, the reason she'd come back after 13 years, was gone. The state central registry finding meant she couldn't pass a background check for any position involving vulnerable populations. Not healthcare, not education, not childcare, not elder care. The thing that sent her looking for me was the thing she could never undo, because I wasn't the one who put it there. A judge did, based on evidence. Evidence I didn't even know I was creating. The cease and desist violation was on file with the county. One more incident and I had grounds for a restraining order, which would create an additional legal record. Another flag on another background check, another door closing behind her. Keith Ballard. Gone. He'd disappeared into another state the week after the original hearing, 13 years ago. Hired his own attorney, separated his name from Janine's wherever he could. Their relationship didn't end with a fight. It ended with a billable hour. The social media accounts, the ones with the hashtags and the blessed selfies and the missing my baby girl captions, were deleted. Dana had mentioned the Facebook message to a few people at the clinic. They mentioned it to a few people outside the clinic. In a small town, information moves at the speed of gossip. The image Janine had spent decades constructing, devoted mother, self-sacrificing single parent, was gone. And she couldn't spin it anymore because there was a paper trail, From hashtag living my best life in Paris to a borrowed room in a friend's apartment, unable to get hired. Not because I attacked her, not because I exposed her, because I stepped to the side and let the consequences she'd been outrunning for 13 years finally catch up. I didn't destroy her life. She made her choices 13 years ago. I just stopped standing between her and the results. 3 weeks of silence. I had started to believe it was finally over. Then Ruth called me on a Tuesday evening. "A letter came for you." She sent it to my address. Not directly to me, through Ruth. Technically not a violation. Janine had always been precise about the edges of rules she was willing to bend. I drove to Ruth's that night. The envelope was on the kitchen table, handwritten. My name in loopy cursive. I opened it standing up. "Dear Elise, I know I made mistakes. I know I wasn't perfect, but I am still your mother and I always will be. I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. I've changed. All I want is for us to be a family again. Mom, P.S. If you could reconsider the letter about my record, I would really appreciate it. I just need a fresh start." I read it twice. She wrote, "I made mistakes." Plural, vague. The way you describe getting a parking ticket or forgetting to return a library book. Not the way you describe leaving your child alone for 31 days in a house with no power, no phone, and no food. She wrote, "I wasn't perfect." As if the gap between perfect and criminal was a rounding error. And then, the P.S. The real purpose? The part the apology was packaging for. One more request. One more form. One more time she needed me to perform a function. She signed it in lipstick. I'm not making that up. Not ink. Not pen. Lipstick. The same way she signed postcards to friends from vacation. Even her apology was a performance. I didn't reply. Didn't tear it up. Didn't burn it. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in the desk drawer. Next to the journal. Next to the USB drive. Next to the birthday cards Ruth had saved for 5 years. If she ever came back again, I'd have one more piece of evidence I didn't ask for and she handed me voluntarily. The drawer closed with a quiet click. The same drawer, the same journal, but a different girl deciding what to keep. It's morning as I tell you this, a Saturday in October. I'm sitting in my studio apartment with a cup of coffee that's almost too hot to hold. I just opened the refrigerator. Full. Milk, eggs, spinach, leftover pasta from Thursday, a container of soup, Ruth dropped off last Sunday, 2 apples, a block of cheese. You don't understand what a full refrigerator means until you've opened one at 2 in the morning and found nothing but a light bulb and a ketchup packet. Now, every time I open that door and see food, something in my chest releases, a muscle I've been clenching since I was 11. I don't hate Janine. Hate takes maintenance I'm not willing to provide. I just don't make room for her anymore. Not in my house. Not in my head. Not in the refrigerator. Ruth and I have dinner every Sunday. She's 72 and still tends her tomato garden. She still asks, "How was your day?" every time I call. She still tapes things to her refrigerator. Last month it was a thank you card I gave her. No reason. Just because. I work at the clinic. I file charts. I help parents check in their kids. Sometimes a mother walks in looking overwhelmed and tired and scared, and I give her a warm smile and say, "Take your time, we're in no rush." Because I know what it looks like when a child is watching to see if the adults around them are paying attention. Ruth once told me, "Boundaries aren't walls you build to keep people out, they're doors where you hold the key." I think about that a lot. If you're listening to this and it feels familiar, if you were the child in the dark house, or if you're the adult still afraid of being called selfish for saying no, I want to tell you something. It's the same thing Mrs. Whitfield told me the day she knelt beside me in a nurse's office with a juice box and a question I'd been waiting my entire life for someone to ask. You don't have to protect anyone right now. Just tell the truth. My refrigerator is full. My phone works. My door has a lock that only I control. I am 24 years old and I am finally, completely, home. That's my story. I didn't tell it for pity. I told it because silence is what people like Janine count on. And I'm done being quiet. If this reached you, hit like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you've ever had to draw a boundary with someone who called it betrayal, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. There's another story waiting for you in the description about a girl whose family tried to erase her from a wedding and what happened when she showed up anyway. I'll see you there.